So welcome, John and Ilona, and get ready for your freebie this session. Don's the guy with the beard here. Ilona, I'll get you a separate microphone.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
While they're getting that set up, I'll give you a brief overview of what we're going to do. The title of this talk, everything you all need to know about radionics, but we're afraid to ask. And sometimes I wonder if sex or radionics has more, thought forms around it. There are lots of things that people believe about radionics, which hopefully at the end of this we'll have enough time to do some questions and answers. And answer some of those myths and legends and try to put some reality into it. Actually, I hope that we can answer most of the questions through the presentation that we have prepared for you. First, we're going to do a little bit of theory, just a very, very brief history for those people that do not know what radionics is or where it came from. That's going to be very brief. We'll give you some theory that you probably have never seen anywhere before. And if you have seen it before and you know anything else that I don't know, please chime in and help. And then we'll actually pass out the radionic instruments. You'll have to put them together, and we'll do that all together. And we'll actually teach you how to use them and work together on that. So we'll do a little bit of history first. If we could get the overhead projector on.
Yeah, could you do me a favor and switch and just put these pages on when I ask you to? They're already on. Okay. Why don't we start out thinking about what radionics is? And I'll just give a simple description of maybe one or two sentences of what it is. Actually, I think this is a daylight projector. I don't think we need to get this dark because we will have a couple more things where we need daylight. Can everybody see that okay? Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Radionics is really a way of interfacing with subtle energy fields and then being able to balance them. Now, many people can interface with the subtle energy fields in many different ways, from pendulum work, through their own mind, through any other devices and geometric designs. And there are many different paths that teach you how to do that. I personally feel that radionics is a way of letting a lot of people interface with the subtle fields, and that's why we're able to do this today in one day, and you'll be able to see how simple it actually is. And balance and affect the subtle energy fields. Without a lot of training, of course, the better you get and the more time you put into it, the more effective you're going to be. But it is not something where you have to spend the first 12 years to even learn anything. So here it is that you get a chance to try out yourself at subtle energy fields. And I just will briefly touch on the history. It was originally developed by Albert Abrams, an American MD, who found out through rather some accidental methods that he could tap into information through a device, and he was measuring what originally started out as ohm resistances. Later on, what people found out is that it's really informational fields. It's nothing that is electromagnetic or etheric like many people think, and it's actually being told by many even SE5 practitioners. And actually, I'd rather even quote Bob Beck on this, and maybe he will explain some about scalar fields in his talk after this session. And Don will talk about it as well. But he was the first one to develop it. George Delaroire from England and Ruth Strown from the States, who went over there as well, developed more on radionics. And there's an excellent book, which the bookstore in the back carries, and it's called Report on Radionics by Edward Russell. It's called Report on Radionics by Edward Russell. And most alternative bookstores should carry that or should be able to order it. It gives you the whole history, as well as some studies that have been done in the Greenbelt in Maryland with some radionic equipment where they were very successful, and the reasons why it had been stamped out here in America, etc. So let me just briefly look at my notes here. I think that's going to be it for the moment. Could you switch the overlay to the next page? And I will let Don go into the subtle energy fields and explain to you how they work a little bit.
What we're really looking at here is how matter manifests. And it starts out, Mark Roden was probably one of the most inspirational people that I've met, next to Bob Beck. Got to plug Bob because he's up next and he's my favorite all-time hero. But Mark Roden is probably second on my list of inspirational of how it actually manifests and you can tap into it. Now, the yin and yang sign, which is a very ancient symbol, shows that positive and negative polarity. Energy or spirit or God or whatever you want to call it, before it is split into two, exists already. And that's a whole nother lecture, and we have to go off into religion. That's the point where religion and physics breaks, where God is, and this is where God becomes. Does that make sense? Positive and negative. The way that it does that is it starts a swirling action. And it's nothing more than a vortex. And when you have a vortex, it gives you an inside and an outside and a neutral center. And that's about all you have in the yin and the yang. The next level of manifestation, and these are all what I would say higher orders or more complicated, as you'll see, forms of the same energy source. The causal archetypes are what we call thought pictures. And next year I hope to do a lecture just on that. We've been working with Vern Wolf, who's put together a process called holodynamics. And it works with the causal archetypes, or what he calls holodynes. They're three-dimensional thought pictures that we all store in our brain, and they're the first level of manifestation. The next level is what we call scalar, and I'm going to go into that into more detail in just a few minutes. So we'll just accept that for what it is right now, and we'll go on. And vectors are the next level of manifestation, where the scalar informational fields actually have direction and start moving. This is the first time we have an actual direction for this movement. If you want to think of it from outer space, that's like the center of the galaxy is the center of the universe is the whirl, and now we actually have direction for consciousness to start moving toward Earth, if you want to call it that way. These vectors then combine and start forming what we call photons or subatomic particles, and we actually have something visible at this point, light. Then it creates the atomic structure. The atoms then move and create electrical fields. Then we get our molecules. The atoms combine to create molecules. The molecules combine to create cells. The cells combine to create tissues. Tissues combine to create organs. Organs organize themselves into systems, like the endocrine system. And then the systems create a total organism. Now, this is not the end of the picture. This is the halfway point, or is what in Mark Roden's language is the number 9. If you keep moving, the organisms then combine into couples, 2 people, which then combine into family systems, which then combine into social systems, which combine into planetary systems as a whole, planetary, then into solar systems, into galactic systems, into universal systems. So we're right back here when the whole circle is complete. Now we're going to give you an actual demonstration of how disease manifests from here. This is where the source of all disease, believe it or not, is in what I would call ease or God, and it moves outward. And it's by our own choice as soul, and we're going to show you exactly how that will work.
I would like to have 11 volunteers, and preferably from the first front rows here. Could I have 11 people please come up? Actually, you can stand up here on the stage.
Yeah, that would be good.
If there is space for you. Okay. All right, I will start here in the beginning, and when we have 11 and I get to the end, I'm sure we'll have enough. Okay, as Don just explained, I'll start from the outside, from the organism, and I will give a person a sheet that says whole organism, if you could hold that up. That she represents the whole person with all of the organs within and everything around. Okay? Eleonora will be the organs, making up the organism. As Don was saying, everything combines from the smallest to the largest, and we're starting out from the largest now. Organs are made up of tissues. Line gets to be the tissues. They're made up of cells. Every organ has a different kind of a tissue. The cells form to make the tissues. Molecules actually make up the cells. Electrical fields, or the etheric blueprint that you've probably heard of through Carillion photography, make up the charges around the molecules. Then we have atoms. Atoms are actually really nothing but spinning somethingness. Then we're reaching to the, I'm really to the end here. I need one more person. We're reaching to what Don called the scalar fields, which he'll be talking about in a minute, which is close to the archetypes. Archetypes are the mental or the universal thought images that are held in the universal mind, which create even the mental thoughts. Finally, we have the originating energy, and everybody probably here knows that you are soul. You don't have one, you are one. And you have surrounding bodies that then express who you are. Now, I have to get back here. All these cords hanging on me. Now, let's imagine soul decides to have an experience. Decides it needs to learn something. And
let's pretend soul wants to learn about health. Okay? Now, how is soul going to learn about health? It's probably going to get sick, isn't it? Isn't that the way things usually work? How can you learn about health if you don't know what disease is? So we're going to pretend that soul is making a decision to go into the physical body and learn about health and the health systems. Well, the most efficient way to do that is to cure oneself first. So let's pretend that this gray paper here represents the disease pattern that soul wants to learn about health with. So if you could take these, soul, please, and just pass the whole pile down, and each one of these is going to take one of those as they go down. Yeah, you can retain one.
so what she's doing is she's giving the archetypical informational body of herself the information of what she really wants. She would like to have a disease pattern, actually, and it could come out of some imbalances of not understanding something. So if you could cover up your papers with a gray, you see the originating source of all this information is really up at soul. It travels down through the archetype, into the mental plane, into the photons on light, and then down through the cells, atoms, cells, and tissues, finally down through the organs, and eventually, did we not get enough? Well, she refuses to play the game.
Soul never really does get sick, so we'll just give this to the whole organism.
Right. Soul just gave the information down the line to say, okay, this is what I'd like to have. And now at the end, everybody has it. Everybody listened really well because we have a really coordinated system and passes on the information. Now, many of you have probably wondered how come that we have so many different healing systems. And how come that some of these things work for a while, and some of them work faster, and some of them take longer, and how come all that is? And how come everybody's right? Well, let's say we have the medical society primarily organized around giving drugs, or like the healer's herbs, or we have surgery, or those kinds of things. And if you could just slide it up, they deal really at this level. If they were to try and heal something,
they take out the organ.
They would take out this, and then the organism would appear. Well, all the rest of the organs would still be there, right? Only some of them. So you have these two pretty well cleaned out for the time being. But what happens when you have all that information still stored up? Can you imagine what that will try to do? All the information always will try to pass from the subtler realms into the more manifested realms. It won't be long, right, before something else maybe will try and come and manifest itself, because the lesson wasn't really learned.
How many people have heard of someone that had an organ taken out only to find that not very long later, within a year, maybe 2 years, that another organ had exactly the same problem? Anybody ever heard of that? Okay, lots of people. Okay, well, we could go a little bit deeper. So let's go to the tissue level. Okay.
Cellular electrode.
Well, we can just keep going up. Obviously, the best cure for the whole problem would be to take out the whole organism, right?
No.
You call that, yeah. That would really cure the problem. But unfortunately, that doesn't quite. You've heard that before, right? The operation was successful, the patient is dead. Yeah, that's right. Well, anyway, we can be a little bit more refined than that. Well, let's go up to the tissue level. They do different things with tissue. Some cases like radiation, they're working at the tissue level to bombard the tissue. Hopefully that affects the organs and gets rid of the disease pattern. Or we might try live cell therapy. Okay, that might be a thing where you're actually working at the cellular level. Keep coming up. There are healing methods at each one of these levels. The chemical, molecular level, of course we all know about drugs, but also herbs. Now don't get me wrong, every healing system has its validity. I don't care if there are AMA haters in here, I must say that drugs have their place, and surgery has their place, and radiation has its place. Every one of these gives an amount of time for the organism to hopefully reorganize itself to learn the lesson that soul wants it to learn. Okay, this is really buying time. Each one of these is buying time. Electrical level, we have, now as we get more refined here, you're going to find that the healing not only lasts longer, but is more effective in a more harmonious way. That's my personal experience anyway. An electrical level, you might use something like, the famous RIPE devices or brain tuners or any of these electrical frequencies. We're dealing more with actual electrical rather than magnetism because magnetism is really in the next level up. And people are having great results with those things from the reports that I've heard. The atomic level, once that they tap into the true atomic level, we're going to see some really fascinating healing. Some of the things that I've been hearing coming up with MRI and magnetic resonance are starting to work in this area between the atomic and the photon level, more at the magnetic level. And we're going to see some fantastic things once they really truly tap into the atomic source. Light, we've heard of color therapy. I've heard miracles with color therapy. Personally, it's incredible stuff. But, you also notice that the further away you get from the whole organism and the organs and tissues level, the less money it costs. Right? So there's a reason that you don't hear about these guys up here.
The other thing is that it does take some time to come through all these levels. And some people in here especially try to tune all these levels so that they cooperate more quickly. So we're approaching now the mental level, the scalar field.
The scalar field.
And that is where we're going to talk about today, as we understand it, and that's our personal, and maybe only our personal opinion, is that the SE5 is working from that level. See, again, you're working from a subtler realm into the manifested realm. And of course, it depends a little bit on the focus and the clarity of how quickly that information can pass through. The next level is archetypes, and many people do work within their own minds and imagine balloons taking disease patterns off or transforming them into their full potential energy of what that pattern really wanted. And they actually experience the health and healing process from that level, from within their own mind. Finally, we are at the soul level.
So the real total healing always has to come from soul. If you really are going to clear a whole pattern, it's going to have to come from the soul level, which means that the person has to get in tune with himself. That's my personal feeling. The reason that some of the things way down at the bottom will work, the times that I've seen when they take out an organ and the healing stays for forever, is that because usually the doctor consciously or unconsciously starts working at the archetypical level and gives them a picture of health. That person believes that by taking out that organ that they will be healed. And if they have that belief system, they're starting to work up at this level, and that's when you get true healing.
Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Let's give them all a hand.
Just lay the papers down. We'll collect them later. All right. The next... Go ahead. Sorry. I'm standing on my cord.
So let's talk about the magic of scalar fields. Scalar fields were known throughout all electrical history, up until Maxwell died, of course. Maxwell's formula is taught in all the schools as the normal how electricity functions in all the engineering schools. And his original formula did not look like what they teach today. What they teach today is that basically you get electricity when you have the three dimensions in space. You've got three dimensions, and that electricity flows in those directions. You've got your electrical current, you've got magnetism, and what they left out was the scalar component. And he used to include that in his component of the scalar component here in W as part of the original formula. It's the gravitational part of the formula. And when you take two, let's say you wind a coil in one direction and you wind it opposite in the other direction, exactly the right amount, that's what this formula represents in terms of what they teach today. The sum net of putting electricity in one direction and oppositely equal in the other direction is zero. So most people believe that that's all you get is zero, so why do it? It doesn't make any sense. But according to Maxwell, if you do that, what's left over is 2W here, which is the scalar component. You get twice the gravitational field when you do what we call bucking coils. And a lot of you, I know, are familiar with this. I have known people to tell me that they've actually seen gravitational effects on the workbench by doing this type of work. But what exactly is a scalar and what does it mean? The gravitational component, it means more than what we know about gravity. And from my experience in gravity, living on this planet and living outside of the planet where we all live in what we call soul, gravity actually is thought form, or what I would call information.
Do you want the next overlay?
No, let's finish this one first.
Okay.
Could we move it up a little bit higher, please, so that people can see the top part? Way up. Take this and put it right up there. Oh, it's sticking up. Yeah, just bend it up. Let's take a point in space. A singular point in space really doesn't mean anything until we give it meaning. In this case, we're designating this point as 2. We're giving it meaning. The scalar component of this point, the meaning of it is actually 2. Now, how important is that? That could save your life. If one point, for instance, I'll give you an example. There are 2 places you can go. One place is called 1, and it knows nothing about what you need to do to save your life. And the other point that you would get to would be called 2, and it has the exact information to save your life. How important is it to know which one is 2 and which one is 1? Okay? The meaning behind the point is the scalar. Anybody catching on to what I'm saying here? No. I know it's a little bit, once you catch what it is, the words that I'm saying have absolutely no value, and if I was speaking Chinese, probably not very many people would even understand what I'm saying. But you guys actually understand the meaning behind my words. And that is the scalar component, the actual meaning behind my words. If you don't get it now, come to the workshop tomorrow. We'll go a little bit more into detail. This point, this information can travel in space without any vector whatsoever. It can go from here to Mars instantaneously, faster than the speed of light. Information travels. How long does it take? This is the example I used to use a lot, is that how long does it take for a joke to get around?
Not very long.
Okay, I don't even know how they do it. But jokes get across the ocean faster than the speed of light. But when we're starting to deal with vectors, a vector is anything that moves. Like my voice, for instance, moves from this point. Like if I don't use a microphone, the people in the back don't hear me very well. Right? It drops off. My voice actually drops off in movement. That's what we call a vector. Anything that starts at point A and moves to another point and drops off logarithmically has a vector. Scalars you can retain the information, even though a person couldn't hear me in the back as well. The information that I'm speaking is equally understood by all as long as you can hear it. And the information is what we're dealing with. We'll go more into depth into this and actually explore it tomorrow in the workshop in the morning. So these informational fields, let's go on to the next one, are what we're talking about. Now, how do we produce scalar fields? One way that we can produce them, or what I had talked about earlier, is by winding a coil in one direction and then winding the coil backwards on itself so that we get no electromagnetism as we know it, but it produces the scalar fields. We can also do this with our own brain. Our brain is actually set up in a way like two coils wound upon themselves. And if we can, now normally, most people work with one side of their brain or the other side of their brain. But what happens if we turn both sides of the brain on equally and collapse the fields? Now, Bob Beck did a lot of work with this, with tuning people into the resonant field of the Earth of 7.83 hertz. If you can get the left side of your brain at 7.83 hertz and the right side of your brain at 7.83 hertz, and you lock that on with the Earth's field of 7.83 hertz, you've created very, very powerful scalar fields to do lots of magic things. So this is the heart of radionics.
I would just like to give credit to Bearden, out of whose book this was taken, and it was called AIDS, correct?
Yeah, biological warfare.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now, here are a couple exercises that you can do to help yourself to produce scalar fields. The way that people bend spoons, for instance, is that they turn on both sides of their brain and focus that scalar field on the spoon, and it just melts. I mean, I've seen this happen. Metal will just melt from a person's scalar fields of their own brain. Now, we're not going to teach you how to bend spoons. That's Jack Houck's job. But we do want you to start using both sides of your brain. So, one technique that you can use is by alternate nostril breathing, because the side of the brain that is turned on, usually the nostril corresponds with that we're breathing through. So you can breathe first through one nostril and then through the other nostril to try and equalize your brain halves. There are other ways of doing it, like the brain tuner, for instance, Bob's brain tuner, or the light sound units with the flickering lights start to turn on both sides of the brain equally.
How long did you say the breathe?
Until both sides are fairly clear. The question was, how long do you do that with the alternate nostril breathing? Until you've got movement on both sides. Okay, she says, Betty says even numbered times, 2, 4, 6, or 8, 10, etc. Okay. So, getting back to radionics, how does all this apply? We're using scalar fields. Now, an instrument like the SE5 has those coils built into it with what we call the caduceus loop coils. And so it has a generator of scalar fields. But John Campbell found out that with Hieronymus's machine, he could take the schematic diagram of the Hieronymus machine and put it on a piece of paper and get radionic results with this. And the way that he was doing that was by using his scalar generator in his own mind in conjunction with the schematic diagram. So what we're going to pass out today are schematic diagrams of an actual radionics unit, and we're going to put them together. So you might want to do some alternate nostril breathing, and we'll start passing those out.
We need 6 volunteers
Pass them out.
to pass them out, or actually as many as 1 to 5 at least.
Yeah, if we could get a few people here to walk around and start passing some of these out.
And,
And we'll tell some stories while they're here.
okay. Could you take
What
one
can
box?
radionics do? I
And
want
could
to tell
you
two
take the
quick
other
stories,
box?
'cause that's always fun.
And could
What
you
can you do with
take
scalar
half of each one gets one
What
of
would
those?
happen if you can broadcast an information field
I'm getting feedback.
to some bugs, let's say, and tell them to get out of your garden? Now, these were all the agricultural studies that are in Report on Radio. But I do have some personal stories with that. First got the radionics unit, I really didn't know if this thing would work or not. We were in Germany, and they had this greenhouse. They said, "Can you get rid of my bugs with this?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never tried this before." So I typed it in the instrument, and I did all the proper procedures, and we let it run for a while. I was actually too afraid to go back to see if it worked. To be honest with you, this was pretty scary stuff. So I hear reports a couple weeks later back and saying, well, they want to know all about this instrument because all their bugs left. But they did also sprinkle some extra ash around the plant, so they're not sure if your machine did it or if the ash did. Now that's a common thing we hear, is that it got better. It got better, but maybe it was... Go ahead.
I used to talk about in classes about the phenomena that people would have somebody balance them on a radionic instrument, and when it went away, whatever they had, or when it got balanced, they said, well, I'm not sure whether it was your instrument or the orange juice I drank this morning. This was a standing joke I told everybody. Now, we went to Germany, actually to the largest medical fair, and we're rather fortunate there that it's still legal. Here in America, we have to be a little bit more careful as to how we present radionics. But anyhow, we were there, and I had not told anybody this story. We did some work for somebody who came by and said, can you make this and this happen for me? So we work, never know whether it works or not, because it's never 100%. But Don did the work. The guy came back the afternoon, and they were passing out fresh squeezed orange juice somewhere. And he said, well, I'm not sure whether it was your machine or the orange juice I just drank.
But my headache is gone. Well, I'll tell you another story. You can also work with inanimate objects on this kind of thing. Does everybody realize here that cars have personalities? Okay, great. I'm not alone. I feel pretty weird when I tell these things.
That's why we name them.
That's why we name them. Well, a friend of mine had this beautiful Audi. It's the most expensive Audi you can get, and it was a gorgeous car. The only problem is that it loved to go to the shop. He told me the whole story later, and I understood it perfectly. This car sat on the lot for a year, and it was the most expensive one, and nobody wanted to buy it. And he was really hoping to buy it, but he didn't have the money yet, so he kind of was hoping that it would stay there and stay there. And well, it did. Well, it got used to sitting in that spot, and so it really liked it. So it always went back there. Well, when I got to Germany, we were sitting there, and he got a phone call, and he said, they can't find out what's wrong with my car. It's been there for 5 days, and they have no idea what's wrong. They just called to tell me that I just have to pick it up because they don't know what's wrong with it, and it's just going to run like this. Well, he had some problems with the turbo and this, that, and the other. He said, what could the SE5 do for this? And I said, I don't know. I never know what I could do with it. But so we took the title of the car as a sample, and we put it in the instrument, and we said something like, remove blockages from getting the car fixed. And I measured it first, and the blockages were about 100%, so the car really liked this problem, I guess. So we flipped it into the balance position, and about half an hour later, we got a phone call, and they said, Mr. Ramjoy, I don't exactly know how to tell you this, but we found a problem with your car. It was really strange. We had it up on the lift, and we were just about ready to let it down. And for some reason, the mechanic stuck his head up there and looked in this really strange place and saw this hole in the hose. And so it was only $5, and you can come down and pick it up. It's fixed. No. 5 days they were working on this and could not find the problem. The stories go on and on and on. I mean, I could tell you this for all day.
Could I get a hand of how many have not received parts of the instrument?
Oh, there are lots of people that don't have them. Okay.
So what do you need? You need the sheet. Okay.
I need the
So
stickers.
you don't have it?
yeah. They don't.
Okay, mostly here in the front rows actually, and apparently it's the white sheets you need? Yeah. Okay. Pardon? The white sheet, yeah. You will get an instruction sheet. Actually, it would probably be easier if you could come afterwards to our table, which is the one or the front. You're actually a student in the front. And take home an instruction sheet. It tells you step by step what you can do. And so many of you have probably wondered by now what this is. Some of you may have never seen a radionics instrument. Can I see hands for somebody who doesn't know what it is at all? My, what an educated crowd.
This is incredible.
But you didn't ask how much percent, how much percent we don't.
No, it's just that you know what it is. Okay, so briefly let me go over this. You have some place to get sensitive information. All of you pick up subtle energy fields all the time. Most of us screen the information out. So what we have is a detector plate. All of you who have the instrument by now sense it. It's kind of a rubbery plate, and if you rub your right hand over it, it's slightly sticky, or a sense of it's different than the paper above it. Okay. Now, that's called the stick plate. So when we say put your right hand on the stick plate, that's where you would put it. Next, does everybody have a little yellow pad?
Does everybody have both parts now?
Both parts?
Raise your hand
Okay.
if you don't have both parts.
Okay, here's a stickum pad. There's some white ones necessary. Okay, the rest of you that already have it, take your yellow pad and take off the back part, the brown part, and stick it where it says tuning, right next to the right-hand side to the plus. Actually, what I will do is I will divide it into two so I can write a little larger. But you just do it once. So it should stick there pretty well. Okay? Then what you have is an area that's called witness area. Normally in radionics instruments you have a well or some place to put a picture, or a hair sample, or earth sample, or anything that you have a sample. We don't have very much, so I would like to ask you all, do you have a pen? Could you write your signature on one of the pieces of papers and take it and stick it into the witness well?
Now, a signature is not the best witness, but it'll work in a pinch. Best would be hair sample or dry blood spot or a Polaroid photograph. But a signature will work.
Okay.
Sure. You can use your hair if you want to.
But for the ease right now, it's best if you just put your name on there. And you have an amplitude which says a number from 0 through 10 through 100. So what you really have is some way to interact with this instrument, meaning you can use your body to sense it, to perceive information, which means that if I have a question of some sort, like we work with rays instead of words, but you can use words too. What I wrote down was a number combination, which you just write on your yellow sticker pad. It's called 9-49.
So everybody write that on.
So
that yellow
one
part.
has the witness, and it says witness and your signature on the pad, and one has under tuning the pad saying 9-49. Then you take your right hand and rub it. Here, I'll hold Don's mic, and Don can show it. You use your right hand and rub it over the plate, all the while you're using your left hand to point from 0 or 100 or going up or down. Actually, in this case, since normally vitality should be present in any one of you, you start from the top, 100%. So, could you all please take your left hand and start from 100 with your left index finger, and with your right hand, rub over the plate. Then slightly, start exactly at 100 though, don't start anywhere below. Okay, then as you rub, move your index finger down. And as you rub, you will come to a place where your hands feel like they're getting stickier and stickier. Like they're almost getting stuck to the plastic. Now, it is a very subtle sense of stick sometimes, especially when you begin.
How many people got the
And then you
stick
stop.
the first time? Oh my God. You guys have food.
Oh, Bob Beck got the first stick right away. Who wasn't having a hand for Bob? We had all these exercises designed, and then after the 5th or 6th one, we were going to say, at this point, Bob Beck even should get a stick.
We've been working with him for a long time. That's
No,
good.
no, actually, he's been getting sticks forever, but the common mistake is, when you get a stick and you question yourself, your mind gets all confused. It said, I gave you the right answer, why don't you believe me? And then you say, well, I don't think this is right. You'll try it again, and your mind, your subconscious mind is a pleaser. It says, what? Didn't like the answer, I'll give you another one. So you start over. You get another stick. And if you don't like that answer, guess how many more you can get? Yeah, infinitely more.
So this is like dowsing. You want to train your mind and appreciate your mind for giving you the proper information. How many people are still having trouble getting a stick? Okay. Would it be okay if we took a photograph of the group, would it be okay if I put that in the SE5 and we'll broadcast a readout that helps everybody get a stick? Would that be okay? Okay.
All the while, I will ask you to close your eyes for right now. And I will do a small visualization with you, which should help you to access your right brain. Would you be interested in that?
Yes.
All right. So if you could do it with eyes open. It's really up to you. In your mind, could you please become quiet and focus within? And in your mind, just choose a place of peace. A place that you may already have, that you know about. For me, sometimes it's a place at a beach with a soft sunset coming down. You could be anything else. Could you feel it? Are there any colors there? Smells? Any sounds? And in your place of peace, could you see walking towards you, at your fullest potential, the way you would be in your most magnificent form? Can you see yourself? Are there colors?
Open your eyes. Keeping that meditative state. Let's try this again.
Ask your full potential to help you teach you all you want to know about radionics. To bring to you the wisdom and knowledge that can be gained from that.
How many got a stick this time? Vitality went up too, right? Yes. Also,
Yeah. What happens is when you turn both parts of your brain on, is that the energy can flow equally, that you can let yourself become yourself in all your ways. So what we would like to experiment with is everybody probably would love to know how high their different chakras are and how vital you are in those areas. That represents vitality. Would you be interested in measuring your own chakra energy?
Yes.
All right. Would you... All right. I'm going to do a quick run through. I'm going to choose 3 of the 7 that are there. Could you write down the numbers take off the pad, and Don will write it on the yellow. 56-26.5. You took off your old. It's 56-26.5. There's 2 numbers. 56-26.5. Don just did it over there, so you have your signature in the well, and that is representation, and that is the numerical representation of your root chakra, your survival chakra. Anything to do with making a living, surviving, monetary gains, your health. And now, could you start? And these are positive rates. There is a lot of detail to be learned about what rates they are, but, and actually, and I take a step back, really, whenever you do a reading, you should be measuring whether it's appropriate to do a reading, which is measuring the energy purity, and 4 interference rates, which will be on your sheet. When you go home, the instructions are on there to measure first all those interference rates. And there are some rates that are positive rates, like these that we're giving you here. They should all be at least in the area of 50 and above. There are those that are negative rates that should be less than 10%. And those interference rates should never be more than 10. So when you go home and practice, or at the workshop we go into the details, you measure and make sure that those are all in balance before you start. Because sometimes it is not appropriate to make something happen or to balance an energy field that is not ready to change. You may think so, the person may think so, the cat may think so, the plant may not say anything. But it may not be appropriate for the time being. There may be a lesson involved that you need to learn at a greater level. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. So
Three.
it's right here. I'm holding a 5.
I know, but I didn't. I had
Okay, so could you do a measurement and read? You should start from 100%. Put your left index finger to 100%. Rub your hand on your right hand over the rub plate, and slowly slide down and ask what percentage of vitality or how energized is this chakra. It's the root chakra at the base of the spine, usually associated with the color red. Okay. Now, could you write that percentage on your sheet of paper and take the stick paper off and put it on your lap? Actually, take as many other sheets off of you should keep the Radionics instrument or the SE.05 clear of any other clutter other than what is necessary, like your signature and the pads. Okay. Now, the next grade would be your heart chakra. Would everybody like to know how well your love flow is doing?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. 66-60. 66-60. Again, you take your right hand, rub over the plate, all the while asking, how open, how balanced is my heart chakra?
Okay, after you have the reading for the heart chakra, we'll try an actual balancing for the whole room. Now, for anybody that's a sensitive or clairvoyant, they will notice changes in the room when we do this. Okay, everyone done with the measuring the heart chakra? Okay, so go ahead and take that sticker off and put it with the root chakra and write down the percentage that it was. The next rate that we want to put in is a rate for love, and it's 2828-711. 28-711. Okay? And to balance it, we're going to simply write the word balance on the same sheet, on the same little sticker that says 28-711. Some of you are already doing it. I can sense it already in the field.
how much? What chakra is that?
This is just a representation numerically for love.
And you can write the word love on there if you'd like also.
So what you're doing is you're not taking a measurement right now. You're simply writing the number onto the tuning pad, love and balance. What it does is it brings up the energy of love, especially if this many people are doing it. And let's just take a couple moments. And while we're doing this all, let me tell you that this symbol, this triangular symbol, works as an amplifier. The information travels to and is broadcasted out the seven times wound coil. That is your rep plate as well as your antenna. The information that you pick up is translated through the rub in the antenna. Is correlated with your signature and the number, as well as put out. So what you're doing now is sending out the information.
Let's take a moment and go back to that focused state where both of your brains were on. Go to your place of peace for a moment.
Sense yourself, see the colors that you saw.
Just momentarily focus on that rate. 28-711. Love. Thank you very much.
workshop tomorrow morning in the AM, 3 hours, where we'll do in-depth experiments with it and show you how to do it in a little bit more detail.
Can I ask one quick
You can also purchase the instrument, the extra ones. If you want to take some home for your friends and say this is a neat thing, they're $5 at our table after Bob's talk is over.
I just have one.
And that's it. Thank you.
Did it make me?
Remain in your seats just a moment, please. No.
Did it matter which way I put my hand?
They'll still be here tomorrow, tonight, picnic, and all that. I would like to have you remain in your seats.